for this first playoff, let's invite our distinguished speakers. We have Mr. Ulrich Heppe, CEO, Stuttgart Airport. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause. We have Mr. Shubhranshu Singh, CMO, CVBU, Tata Motors. Mr. Dikdyuti Sen, Global Marketing Director, Flixbus. Mr. Reinhold von Ungern-Sternberg, Director, International Markets, BVMW. And the match referee for this playoff is my good friend and colleague, Aditya Raj Kaul. Aditya, all yours.
Thank you so much. Well, I'm not going to sit at the podium. I'm going to join the audience here, right in between. And this is the first playoff of this season of the Global Summit that News9 has organized at Stuttgart. So thank you very much for joining us. You know, India and Germany have had, great relations. The relations have been actually broadening and growing by leaps and bounds. We had the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz very recently in New Delhi with almost half his cabinet. And that clearly indicates the emphasis that Germany lays on India. And Germany already is one of the biggest, I would say, the partners of India from the European Union. So let me actually begin by asking Ulrich Heppe, the CEO of the Stuttgart Airport, that one of the areas where there has been emphasis has been innovation, mobility, and sustainability. In fact, this is the area where emphasis has been laid during the recent visit and the India-Germany framework. How do you see India and Germany collaborating together and Germany actually providing that technology to the large population in India? And what better can India do to actually have more investors from Germany?
Thank you very much for having me. My name is Ulrich Heppe. I'm 53 years old, 4 children, CEO of Stuttgart Airport. Who of you all arrived at Stuttgart Airport? Please raise your hand. Wonderful. I hope you had a good experience. If not, complaints to me. Yeah? And no, thank you very much for having me. I'm happy to answer your question. I am very excited because I love India. Before I came to Stuttgart 2.5 years ago, I lived with my family in Ahmedabad, the capital of Gujarat. I was in charge for Ahmedabad International Airport and for the transition of some other Adani Group airports from privatization into private ownership. So I'm super excited. I love the Indian cultures, the languages, the food, the people. I'm a big fan, and that's why I was honored when you asked me to join the panel. So. No, I think mobility is the big key, and Germany, actually India is the largest growing market for aviation. The companies Air India and Indigo and Akasan, they ordered over 1,000 aircrafts, much more than the Gulf carriers or the Chinese carriers did. So a lot of growth will come, and we want to be as an entry point. We are the gate to Baden-Württemberg at Stuttgart Airport. And hopefully soon we'll have some direct connectivity. Last Friday I talked to the colleagues from Air India, and they also could imagine they're focusing on Frankfurt and Munich, unfortunately right now, but there are new aircrafts coming which are good for secondary airports to connect because they're a little bit smaller, like the Airbus 321 XLR or Airbus 321 LR. They could go ideally from Bangalore to Stuttgart or to Mumbai, to Delhi, to Stuttgart. So we're looking forward to this. Then I think both India, you have so much talent, so much well-educated people. The people I worked with in Ahmedabad, I was really impressed. I think Europe is happy that India orders a lot of Airbus, which are produced in Europe, but you're also ordering Boeings. Good for Europe that Boeing has some difficulties right now, but I think it's good to have 2 big aircraft producers. For me, it's important that we get zero-emission flights. The industry wants to be without emissions by 2050, so the short distance should be electric. The medium distance should be with green hydrogen powered, and the long distance with the sustainable aviation fuels. And India can be one of the major green hydrogen producer with all the solar energy you have and also wind. So I think India plays an important role in aviation in the future.
I think India plays a significant role, certainly, in the global economics today, one of the fastest growing economies in the world at present. Let me bring in Shubhranshu Singh, CMO from Tata Motors, who's flown down from India all the way. Shubhranshu, Make in India has been one of the primary projects of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and people have been speaking about it, the kind of flexibility that it has brought in towards collaborations and, of course, productions that are happening in India. But for a German investor, for an investor perhaps from the larger European Union, how significant is Make in India? Do you also feel that there needs to be an understanding of the local tastes, and perhaps the investors need to mold themselves to the local environment and atmosphere?
Yes, thank you. I think the ministers had already spoken about the huge opportunity that India presents, not only to Germany, but to the developed world at large. Let me just address this from a brand building and a marketing standpoint. You see, India is a very large market, already the 5th largest economy by nominal GDP. We are 3.55 trillion. We have a 1.3 billion plus population. What we don't realize is how young and optimistic the country is in terms of demographics. So we are a median age of 28 years. 400 million Indians are yet not 20 years of age. So for the next, say, 50, even 100 years, the population increase in the world is going to come essentially from the developing markets. And when we say global or developed market, actually it is India and China put together, which is 2/3 out of every 100 people on the planet. So, and that is not going to change for a very long time. The second part of this youthful optimism is how they are responding to the market. And there, I think, whether it's Germany or the top 6 developed economies in the world, I think the important distinction that has to be made is the nature of the market opportunity. Developed markets are about very large GDPs comprised of very few consumers, each having a lot. Whereas an India market construct is again a very large aggregated GDP, but numerous people each having, relatively speaking, a little. So if you are in India and if you address, say, the top 10% households, by the way, India's urban population is about 500 million, 540 million or thereabouts. So half of a billion people live in urban India. So if you took 30% of those households, for example, you could quickly build a business of anywhere between 100 million to 500 million at average levels of profitability by global standards. But if you have to really become a vast business, then you have to go 1, even 2 levels below that, which means pricing comes into play. The 2 defining characteristics of Indian consumers vis-a-vis a developed market is that they're relatively less affluent, but equally savvy. And our last mile now is organized around the mobile phone. And so therefore, savvy consumers, very networked consumers, very informed consumers, but not very prosperous consumers yet. But then every $1 trillion that gets added to the economy or any 10 years that elapse will change the construct of the market a great deal. So the one prescription that I could make perhaps for German companies or developed countries per se is you have to be about the mass market. You have to think of new price points, new products, and new ways to the market. In India, the last mile is critical. And so if you are imagining that the rest of India will catch up and suddenly become developed overnight, then you will remain relatively small. But if you have the imagination to say, I will go 1 level, 2 levels, or 3 levels deep or deeper and change the model. So instead of saying this is the global model, I will wait for all in India to catch up to the global model. Instead of that, if they had the imagination to say this is a large market in aggregate. How do I serve it? What models are required? Then I think the sky is the lower limit.
Well, certainly the last mile is important. Certainly, let me get in Ungern-Sternberg at this stage. You're director of the international markets of BVMW. You've been already collaborating with NASCOM, with FICCI and CII. Would you like to speak about that? Because small and medium markets are important. The small and medium companies are significantly important for India as well. What kind of an environment are you looking at in India and tapping the opportunity really in India?
Well, yes. Today, the ministers, the ambassador, many people already have outlined that Germany and India are a perfect fit together because of common things and because of differences. So the consumer market we are talking about is something that, besides all our commitments to work together, has not been explored in its full stage, is even not started, this success story. But if we look in both markets and both countries, then we see that in India we have lots of consumer goods and also B2B producers who are B2B2C, producers of goods that are good for making consumer goods or services. And in Germany, the same. And in Germany, we have talked about the well-known brands like Porsche, Mercedes, here in this region especially. And the business our business association stands for is not just the SMEs, it's all family-owned businesses in Germany,
right,
all the Mittelstand. And it's based on the SMEs and the larger mid-caps and large family-owned companies that are the backbone of the German economy. And these companies stand behind these well-known brands like Porsche, like Mercedes. And these companies would not deny that their success is also based on these small and medium-sized and even larger family-owned businesses. And what we have talked about is that at the moment we still have these hurdles, the barriers of trade we try to overcome by getting this EU and India trade agreement done. It's very difficult, as we all know, but the way to go into the both consumer markets is to invest. So to go to India, the German SMEs, and we've heard about successful stories by the ambassador of companies who are going to India. And the other way to Germany is even not so complicated because we have in Germany a lack of talents on the one hand side, but we have increased by far the numbers of students and people coming here to Germany. And we have another problem in Germany that Indian investors could match, because if they invest in German family-owned SMEs who do not have successes for their family businesses, they can come into the market. So I think we have good ways for both sides to enter in the other market.
Well, surely the Indian skilled force comes in handy at this stage, and that was certainly discussed when Robert Habeck and others visited India. But let me get in Dikdyuti Sen at this moment. Indian travelers have been traveling with a vengeance post-COVID, post the pandemic. And you've been providing quality travel. You've been providing technology. Would you like to replicate your successful model in India? And also, Indians, particularly the youth, which constitutes probably 35 to 40% of the population currently, are also investing, are also actually do want luxury. How do you make that happen?
No, thanks for this question. I think let me begin by first saying, I think as an Indian living in Germany, I was listening to our honorable speakers earlier this evening. Everything we talk about India is in superlatives, and I couldn't help but feel very proud about it. over the last 10 years that I've been living away from India, a lot has changed. And I look back at this, the infrastructure, the GDP per capita, name it, and it has doubled or tripled. We only talk in orders of magnitude. What has also happened as a result of that is the hunger for travel, as you just mentioned, right? India is also one of those only few countries, or probably the only one that I know of, where the probability of travel, like people in their own admission, is higher after COVID than it was before. So more people are looking forward to traveling. And with the increase in affordability, the increase in earnings, there are more and more people coming in market to be wanting to travel. And I think maybe let's take a step back in terms of think of what Flix does in that setup, right? For the ones here in Germany, I think you're very familiar with Flixbus, and if you're in Stuttgart, then the green trains as well. But just to put it into perspective, right? Flix transports about 80 million passengers a year around 43 countries. And I'm very happy to say as of 2024, also in India, right? We've just started operations in India. But what Flix brings to India is that global standard of collective sustainable mobility. We're bringing in the next millions of people who are willing to travel, and if not for anything but the sake of our all common future, I think there needs to be sustainable transport in the country. I think that's what Flix brings. Flix brings a consolidation and consistency to a highly fragmented intercity transport in India. But not just that. I mean, also thinking from what it means for brands across Europe and India. A very recent study from Deloitte and Google states, by 2040, India will be one of the largest, number 3, if I'm not wrong, in terms of outbound source of travelers. And for a lot of these travelers, Europe is going to be their first port of call. I think this is a great time for brands like Flix to build that bridge. When these travelers are ready to travel to Europe, travel around the world, the green buses and trains will be a familiar face wherever they go. So I think all in all, I would say Flix is here to transform the intercity bus market in India, bringing in collective, sustainable travel for a lot of people who are now looking to, enjoy this new form of life and leisure that they're looking forward to.
Well, excellent. We are at the MHP arena, and we are not following the traditional way of debating and having these panel discussions. So this was the kickstart. And me, as the referee, am now calling questions from the audience. And this is a special segment. Any questions from any of the participants who are present here, who want to ask the 3 leaders from India and Germany on the way forward?
I liked it very much in Ahmedabad, and in Germany we sometimes tend to overanalyze things and a little bit too risk averse. And my colleague in Ahmedabad, they were always, let's go for it. No, we do it, we get it done. So this spirit the Germans can learn doing business from our friends in India. I think consumer behavior and the young generations, it's not so different. I have a 15-year-old daughter, a 19-year-old daughter, and also an 8-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old boy. And if I see the new kids, they love a lot everything with social media and with videos and dance and text and food. And I just came back from Doha to speak to Qatar Airways there and my daughter called me, Uli, you have to bring me some Dubai chocolate from Dubai, yeah? And I said, no, I will not bring you Dubai chocolate. I'm in Doha. So they're all in food and stuff, and whatever gets promoted on social media, if it's cookies so it's not so different, consumer behavior.
Well, for audience and those who are watching us live, they couldn't hear the question. So I have to tell them that the question was about the difference in the consumer behaviors between people here in Ahmedabad, his experiences here, and in Germany. Anyone else from the audience who would like to ask a question? Please. Mr. Sternberg, what are the 3 top hurdles that you face while investing in India, and how do we overcome that?
Yes, thank you for the question. So the 3 top hurdles for investors from India and Germany are there's no transparency in the market where to invest in. This is combined with the situation that in Germany, if you want to start a business, of course, this is a market that's already, it's not a growing market, so you have competition. So if you want to go into the market, you need to know where your opportunities lie and with whom you can partner, or which company you can take over or invest in. So, and this is something you need a network of trust. So you can approach embassy, you can approach institutions that give you a bit of insights in how to go into the German market, but then you need the contacts and you need this networks of trust. And this is what we are very much working on, because our association has been founded 49 years ago, and we have partners, as mentioned, in India, which are FICCI, CI, and NASCOM, and we are having roadshows in Germany. We are traveling, we are bringing our business people together with the Indian business people, and I don't recall one of these meetings where this question has not been discussed. And this is where people meet and where people come into contact with each other. And I want to introduce my colleague Daniel Raja, which is present here. He's the driver of all these contacts between the Indian associations and our business people. So we can just continue here after this talk.
Well, certainly we can. One of the good things that has happened is that the intent is turning into outcomes in the recent years. And I want to quickly go to Shubhranshu here. One of the areas that we saw recently being discussed between Olaf Scholz and Prime Minister Modi was about a large amount of Indian skilled force, the workers actually going from India to Germany. The numbers could be to the range of 90,000 to perhaps 200,000. How do you see they helping the German economy grow as well? Because they bring in talent, they bring in innovation, they bring in this entire gamut of mobility, sustainability that we are talking about, a renewed push in that sector.
Well, I must firstly confess it is not really an area of expertise for me, but I can venture a good enough guess, because in my sector, in the automobile and automotive space, it is well known that where we are sitting today is really the heartland for European automobile industry, and there is a lot of innovation that gets percolated both ways. And I think if you look at the spread of skill sets that are available now in India and the general change in demographics in Europe, in Germany, with the aging population versus a very youthful, skilled population in India, I think that exchange is natural. But if I may take the liberty of adding to your question, one of the things which happens conversely is that when folks come into India, they imagine that there is going to be an inflection point based on per capita income, for example. So, everything will start happening after $3,000 or whatever. That's not the way the world works today, because in India, all of these skills have developed on the back of domestic players who have innovated to fill the gap. Because if there is market opportunity, it's not going to wait for a multinational to come in and provide them valuable but price-effective solutions. So a lot of our skill sets are happening. In India, we have a word for it. It's called jugaad, or innovation on the fly, and that has provided us with a very robust toolkit, no matter what the situation is, to be able to innovate. And I think that, married to first world infrastructure, is a wonderful thing, which is also a talent magnet. But if in any case, like I said, if out of 100 people, 2/3 of them are going to be in India and in China, then we need to shift the definition of what is global or what is Asian workforce. Because if you take a count of people and you were to line them up in one line, then it will predominantly be an Asian line. So if the Asian talent and Indian talent in particular goes across the world, it will be a more productive and economically a more value-adding world, I feel.
Well, we are out of time, but is one last question by Mr. Sri. Yeah.
Thank you to the moderator. So this is a question which I think three gentlemen could possibly weigh in on.
In my opinion, this philosophy that, there's an ugly duckling which will mutate into a beautiful swan is actually, in my opinion, not correct thinking. Every tier of Indian consumption is booming, but it's booming in its own unique way. So you have to understand the DNA of that demand. And secondly, the leapfrogging that has happened in India, people don't go back. So if, say, if we are roughly in parts of India where Poland was 15 years ago or Mexico was 10 years ago, the consumer of today is not going to consume the way 10 years ago Poland was consuming. So if you ask an Indian kid today that, don't play games on your smartphone, instead prefer to buy Scrabble or Rubik's Cube because, hey, that was popular in America 30 years ago, it's not going to happen. If you told an Indian consumer today to get into line to get a landline phone, he's not doing that. They're all leapfrogged to cellular technology and so on and so forth. So I think time and tide wait for nobody. And if, it is actually lazy thinking, lack of ambition to say this is our model and we'll wait for Indian consumers to catch up. And so if you're doing that, then, I'm reminded of Shakespeare who said, the fault is not in our stars that, we are underlings, but in us, or I think I murdered Shakespeare, but something to that effect. The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves that we are underlings. So
well, on that note, I will have to end it here. Thank you very much. I think Suzanne has a question, but I would request her to ask outside. Thank you very much, Mr. Shubhranshu Singh, Mr. Sternberg, Mr. Sen, and Mr. Heppe for joining us at the first ever News9 Global Summit.
Thank you.
Apologies, I exceeded my time, I think. No, it was...
Thanks. Thanks, Shubhra.
Will they take a photograph? Requesting the panelists on the playoff to please pose for the photographs. Please, sir. And of course, they will be felicitated with stalls from VfB Stuttgart. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause for our panelists in the first playoff of the News9 Global Summit. Requesting Mr. Hemant Sharma to please take the stage. Please take the stage, sir. Requesting the shawls from India to be presented along with the stalls from Germany. Ladies and gentlemen, please, for our panelists, for this incredible Indo-German collaboration that's unfolding in front of you. Ms. Neema Sharma from 4FP Stuttgart.
Wonderful.
All right, all right.